Welcome back, everybody, to the Just Talk Hoops podcast. Hopefully, you guys have had a great week, and hopefully, you are enjoying trade deadline season in the NBA. I think that this is one of the most, or can be one of the most entertaining times of the year. It's just so different from a lot of the rest of the year. It gives something to look forward to in the middle of the season when we've been watching basketball for a while, but now we get to see some new things happen, right? So obviously, there are a few trades that have happened. I'm going to give my thoughts on those today. And then I have a couple guys who obviously they've just been such big names on the trade market that I talk a little bit about where I would like to see them go and how likely I think it is, like how likely them getting traded actually seems to me, because there are always rumors, but the amount of rumors that come to fruition is always a very different number. So we're going to talk about that today. And of course, we'll do our games of the week. Leave a like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you are on Spotify, give this show 5 stars. I really do appreciate all you people who listen. We're going to get right into it here. So we're going to start with the trades that have happened already. So first, the first one happened yesterday. Actually, you know what? Let me talk about a couple. Before we get right into the trades, let me talk about a couple things. First of all, the Paul George situation is crazy, right? The 25-game suspension for performance-enhancing drugs, which he says was due to like mental health, like he was looking for mental health medication, but he then he got a wrong prescription, whatever. Like, it's a weird story. I haven't followed up a ton on it. It's really unfortunate for the Sixers, though, because they've been playing really good basketball as of late. Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Paul George, they've been all playing really well. And it's just unfortunate to see a guy who I like in Paul George just have something like that happen to him. And hopefully he comes back and this is just all misunderstanding. But it is unfortunate to see. Another thing, real quick, shout out to the Charlotte Hornets. They've been hooping recently. We're not going to talk a ton about them with trades and stuff today. Obviously, every team could make a trade, but I don't want to make this episode super long. We don't really talk about them today, but I did want to give a shout out to them because they've been playing really good basketball. They have won games that I did not expect them to win. They beat the Spurs just the other day. They've found their starting lineup that's worked really well for them. Con Knappel has been playing really great. Brandon Miller's had some good games. Like, it's just really gelling. They're playing really well. Guys like Moussa Diabate are stepping up, playing big roles, and it's really cool to see a team that has been bad for years look decent. Like, they're obviously not like a win now team or anything, but they do actually look like a real NBA team for once. Anyway, those things out of the way. That was just real quick tangent. That was the other stuff besides trades I wanted to talk about today. So let's start with the Cavs trade. So I'm wearing my Cavs jersey for today. This is my Jared Allen jersey, who's another guy who might get traded. So the Cavs trade DeAndre Hunter away to the Kings. They get Keon Ellis and they get Dennis Schroeder in return. And then the Bulls are the third team that they get Dario Saric and they get 2 future seconds. So I'll give a grade for all these teams. First of all, let's start with the Cavs. I think this was an incredible trade for them. I'm super high on Keon Ellis. I think he was one of the guys I talked about last week on my last episode on my Under the Radar episode, where I just really like his defensive upside. I think he's a very talented player. I think that obviously there were a lot of rumors about him throughout the year. Teams like the Boston Celtics were pursuing him. A lot of contenders were pursuing him because they say, hey, a defensive stopper is exactly what we need. This guy is a very talented player. And now we can watch him without having to watch the Kings, which is great. Because he's on the Cavs. I think that's a great move for the Cavs. They get rid of DeAndre Hunter's contract as well, which was an overpay for DeAndre Hunter. I feel like Ellis provides way more defensive value, and Dennis Schroeder is a very, very solid, very guard. I'm a big fan of Dennis Schroeder, and he's been on tons of teams. He's getting around, but I think he's someone that gives them a lot of value. And now they do have a lot of guards now. So they've got obviously Garland and Spida as the starters, but now they've got, Keon Ellis is more of a wing, but they've got Dennis Schroeder, they've got Sam Merrill, they've got Lonzo Ball, I think Craig Porter Jr. is still there. They've got a lot of guards, and their team is already small, so I wonder if we'll see them make another move. Because when you look at that bench, right, like their backup big man is probably Dean Wade, and then along with like Max Strus and Jalen Tyson, and like Sam Merrill and those other guys that I mentioned. So they're a smaller team for sure, and it's going to be interesting to see if they make another move. If not, like they kind of need a backup big man, right? So they might talk to teams about, like Day'Ron Sharpe is one that comes to mind. Nick Claxton, and Nick Claxton's probably too expensive for them, but I'm just saying like they need some sort of center who can play, or like at least a big man who can play meaningful backup minutes, improve that size a little bit, because right now they're just a really small team, so they might have to move one of those guards. But still, I really like this trade for them. I think this is an A for me. If I was giving them a grade, I just like I said, I'm super high on Keon Ellis. I'm a big fan of Dennis Schroeder as well. And DeAndre Hunter, although he puts up good numbers, I just don't think he fits what the Cavs wanted to do. And I honestly think once they brought him in last year, we started to see them kind of decline. And I think he just doesn't fit what they want to do. He's a talented player, but I think that this is a really good return for him. I really like this for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now for the Kings, less good. Now, like I said, there were a ton of trade rumors about Keon Ellis already, so it wasn't surprising to see him get moved. But to see that they get DeAndre Hunter no picks for Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder, when Hunter doesn't really fit any sort of timetable that they have, and he's going to help them win more games because I do think he is the most talented player that's involved in this trade here. I think that he will definitely help them grow in terms of he'll help them win games is what I'm trying to say. He will help them win games because he's a talented basketball player, but that might not be what they want because they want to be in that lottery and have a chance at a top 3 pick this year because this draft is absolutely stacked. Even like the top 5 is incredible. So the Kings, who I believe currently have the worst record in the NBA, they want to be in that lottery, and DeAndre Hunter might, with his scoring abilities, his shooting abilities, his fair share of defensive ability, like he might drag them a little bit out of that. Now he's not going to all of a sudden make this a play-in team, which is they might surpass the Pelicans and the Pacers and the Wizards in terms of their record, but then they're not going to be good enough to contend. So you just get rid of what currently are the best odds in the league, or at least tied for the best odds in the league for the number 1 overall pick. And now you're saying, well, we're not going to win either. So it doesn't really make sense for me. I do think DeAndre Hunter's talented, but I don't see why he would stick around long-term in Sacramento. So you're bringing in salary to not move in a direction. So I'd say this is like a D for the Kings. Now, if they still aren't great and if they get the first overall pick, then they'll look back on this trade. They'll be like, it's fine, right? But I don't think that there's any world where you look back at this and you say, oh, we 100% won this trade, unless he sticks around for years and becomes like a pivotal piece in a Kings contending team. But are the Kings going to be a contending team? Not super likely. So I don't love it for the Kings. The Cavs, it's great. Kings, not great. For the Bulls, who are the third team involved in this trade, this is a great trade because they don't give up much of anything. They probably send in some cash. I think I saw something like they were sending, who was it? Yeah, so they had to waive Javon Carter to make space. But that's it. They're getting 2 free second-round picks. Dario Saric is whatever, that's just a guy who will be around for a little while and then he'll be gone. And so you're getting 2 first-round picks for nothing, pretty much. And if you're the Bulls, that's a great trade. I think that's an A for them because who doesn't love 2 first-round picks or 2 second-round picks? Sorry, especially when you're in a situation like the Bulls have been, where it's can they get into a rebuild because they've been stuck in play-in jail? So getting 2 seconds to help them maybe get into that rebuild, and maybe they pair one of those with Vucevic to ship him off. Maybe they I just think that opens up a world for them if they use the picks as picks or if they use the picks as trade bait. Either way, I think that's a really good trade for the Bulls. I think that will really help them. The other team or the other trade that has happened was Vit Krejci to the Trailblazers for Duop Reith in 2 seconds. I think Vit Krejci, I hope I'm pronouncing. I think that's how they pronounce it. Like I don't know where the C, where does the C come into play there? Because Vit Krejci, it's not Krejci. Like that's not what they say on the broadcast and stuff. I don't know. Vit Krejci, I think he's a good player. I think he's a rotational player. He's obviously not someone this is not a groundbreaking trade, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. But he gets moved, Duop Reith in 2 seconds. That's kind of just a return. Like 2 seconds for Vit is not bad. Duop Reith, I think he's injured, right? So he's not going to, like, this doesn't really change much for the Hawks. It does open up a little bit of roster space and a little bit of, money. So potentially they could make another trade, right? Potentially the Hawks could buy into something because they've now got a bunch of second-round picks. So maybe they go talk to a team like the Mavericks about Anthony Davis, or they go, there are a lot of different trades you can make. They were one of the teams that was mentioned alongside Giannis, but the fit of Jalen Johnson and Giannis is very weird, and they're two players who are cut from sort of the same cloth. So having them both doesn't add a whole lot, I don't think. So I wouldn't do that if I were them because the asking price for Giannis is going to be really high, which we're going to talk about in just a second here. But I do think that's kind of a whatever trade. I think the Hawks did a good job getting a good return, while the Trailblazers get a guy who I think is decently talented. So now we're going to move on. Those are the two trades that have happened so far. By the time you listen to this, like if you listen later, there may be more trades that happen. I will keep an eye out throughout the episode in case we get like a breaking news, Giannis to the Heat or something. Spoiler alert there. That's where I would like to see Giannis, but we'll talk about that in a second. But for the moment, we're just going to talk about a couple hypotheticals. I didn't make a ton of mock trades. I know last year I did some more mock trades. I talked about like exactly like what trades I wanted to see. None of those ended up actually happening. But I do I did make a couple, and I just kind of wanted to bring up some of the guys who I think could be traded, or the guys who are talked about in trade talks who I don't think are going to get moved. So first off, let's start with Giannis. He's the main attraction at this trade deadline. It feels like every year there's some star who it's like, this is the guy that everyone wants to go out and get. And this year it's Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't know exactly where Giannis is going to go, because the difficult thing is, so he hasn't officially requested a trade. He's said, I would be open to being traded, but he did not say, like, get me out of here. I'm not playing until you trade me, right? Like, that's what a lot of players have done, but he didn't take that path, which I respect. I think that is, it does show some loyalty to a franchise that has treated him decently well for the most part. Obviously, they haven't built great rosters around him the past few years. This year has been severely disappointing, and I think that's part of the reason why he's saying, like, let me out of here, right? I think that it would be interesting to see, like, I do want him to go somewhere else. Like, that is what I'll say. I do want him to get out of Milwaukee. I just think that they're not fun to watch this year. I think that they've been dysfunctional, and I do want to see him get a fresh start and see Milwaukee get a fresh start, because the thing about Giannis is he's so talented that he's going to keep you in some form of winning, right? Like, you would really need to try to build a terrible team in order to lose around Giannis, and you're not going to do that, right? When you have Giannis, you're going to try to win, but he is like, he can't do it all by himself, so you're not going to be able to contend, but you're also not going to be able to rebuild. So it's just this difficult situation of like, well, now you're stuck in no man's land. I think that Giannis would help any team pretty much, so most teams are going to call. There are some that won't bother, right? Like the Nuggets and the Thunder and these teams that have something set up and they would need to disband something that has worked extremely well for them. That's going to be, that's going to be teams that don't want to buy in for Giannis because it doesn't make sense for them. A lot of other teams are going to say, yeah, we'll call them. There have been rumors about the Nets. I don't want the Nets to, I am a Nets fan. I don't want the Nets to trade for Giannis. I think that the Nets have done a good job rebuilding for the most part, they've done a decent job getting young talent. So they've gotten a bunch of picks, and to just throw that all away to buy in for another win now star who's in his 30s doesn't really make sense to me. Now, Giannis is easily more talented than any player the Nets have, but that's the problem. Is like, well, if you bring Giannis in, then he's going to be on a team sort of like the Bucks, where it's like, wow, they're not actually good because there's nothing around Giannis, right? So you'd be bringing him into another bad situation. Even if the Nets could make that trade without giving up Michael Porter Jr., then you have Porter Jr. and Giannis, and you'd have to give up Claxton in that deal. You'd have to give up Cam Thomas in that deal. You'd have to give up Terrence Mann, right? Like you'd have to give up a lot of the players that would help a team win. So then you'd be running, 3 rookies and MPJ and Giannis? That's not contending. So I would want to see them rebuild, right? I want to see them continue down the path of rebuilding and not just buy in. We've seen Joe Tsai and Sean Marks buy in before, but I don't want them to do that this time. I think that this time is rebuild, do it the old-fashioned, difficult way, the way the Thunder did it. And remember, the Thunder, won the championship last year. So don't buy into Giannis. Now, Giannis is incredibly talented, and it would be fun to see him in a Nets uniform. But I just can't get behind that idea. But now most teams are not the Nets, which is lucky for them. The one team, the team that I would like to see them, or like to see Giannis go to the most is Miami. I feel like that's one of the spots that he would want to stay. And one of the questions around trading for him is, was he going to sign an extension with us? Or should we just wait till the offseason and see if we can outbid these other teams? And I think that he would sign in Miami. I feel like he's been connected to Miami before. I feel like they've got a better foundation to support Giannis than a lot of these other teams. So the most rumored trade package, I didn't build this package. I just found what was widely regarded as the most likely one, and that was Kel'el Ware, Tyler Hero, and picks for Giannis. Now, I don't know if that's going to be enough to get him. Depends how high the Bucks asking price is. It also depends how much Giannis wants out. If he says, get me out of here, I'm done, then yeah, maybe they take that deal because they're like, hey, we need to get him out. And this is getting you Tyler Hero, who's a talented scorer. He'll give you some offensive punch that you're going to be missing with Giannis out. Kel'el Ware, who I'm really high on, I think that he's a really talented player. I think he would be an interesting fit alongside Miles Turner. That's an incredible rim-protecting duo. And so then the Bucks would look like Ryan Rollins, Tyler Hero, Kyle Kuzma, Kel'el Ware, Miles Turner. Now, is that a good team? Not really. But Tyler Hero is decently young, so he can still, I don't know if he's going to develop a whole ton, but it's not like he's going to fall off. Kel'el Ware is very young. We could see Kel'el Ware blossom into something else in Milwaukee. I think that would be interesting. And you get picks in that deal. I don't know exactly what the picks would be, but you would get a few picks, and that does give a good start to your rebuilding phase, especially since I don't think Tyler Hero is going to suddenly catapult you out of, oh man, we're not going to be in this tanking, we can't rebuild while Tyler Hero is here, because I don't think he's, if Giannis isn't going to stop a rebuild, Tyler Hero is not going to stop a rebuild. And then the Heat would look like Davion Mitchell at the 1. I love Davion Mitchell. I'm super high on him. Norm Powell, Andrew Wiggins, Giannis, and Bam. And I think in the East, that could contend. You've got the scoring punch from obviously Giannis, but then also Norm Powell, Wiggins, and Bam can also put in some. The defense is not bad at all with Davion, Giannis, and Bam, and we know Spoelstra is a great coach, so I think that could honestly be really interesting. I think that Giannis could fit in that Miami system. I think he could fit in that identity, that culture. The one thing I wonder about this is the Heat and Bucks clashed with each other so many times that I wonder if there's any bad feelings there. I wouldn't expect there to be anything, but you never know. There may be something that Giannis or that the Heat or Giannis don't really want to gel with the other. But I think that team would be really solid for the Heat. I would like to see that. I think that would be a fun team to watch. And the Bucks would be set off a little better than they would if they traded him for older players, if they get Hero and Ware. So I think that's my favorite trade. The other one that I see as realistic. Now, there are a lot of teams connected to Giannis, right? So the San Antonio Spurs have been connected to Giannis for a while. I don't think that they're going to do it because you look at that team and they've already got such a great foundation that I don't think they want to ruin that. They've already been playing such great basketball this year. They're the second seed in the West, or at least they're top three. I don't know. Like, them and Denver are very close. But I do think that the Spurs, although it would be cool to see Giannis and Wemby, it doesn't have much value besides that since they'd have to give up a lot. Maybe they call, but I think if the Bucks ask for a lot, they hang up the phone, don't feel bad about it. The Nets, I already said I don't want them to try. The Knicks keep getting connected to them, but the Knicks, let's be for real, I don't think that's happening. I just think that, I mean, there's a chance, right? I won't say there's not a chance. I just don't think the trade package works because they don't have many tradable picks. So you'd have to give up the rest of your draft capital. You'd have to give up what, like Karl Anthony Towns, who I don't know if the Bucks say, oh, we're willing to just, like Karl Anthony Towns as Miles Turner doesn't feel like a great fit. I just don't think that Karl Anthony Towns is like, oh, well, he's going to be our guy. Like, I don't think that really makes sense for them. And in terms of young talent, they've got maybe Deuce McBride, who I do like as a player, but like what, Tyler Kolek and Deuce McBride, that's not turning heads the way Khalil Ware and Tyler Hero would. I do think that the Knicks fans would love to have him, but they also always love to have the stars. It doesn't happen. Then the Lakers are another team that's been connected. It's the same thing. They just, because they're a big market, they think they can get the stars. I just don't think that they have the young talent. Maybe they could center some sort of package around Austin Reeves, but I just don't think it makes any sense. They think that Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura is going to get them anybody, but it's not going to get Giannis. The other team, though, that I do think could do something is Golden State. Now, they've been connected to a lot of players. It's been talked about a lot about they'll make a move because they've been decently, or not decently, they've been rather disappointing this year. I didn't expect a whole lot from them, but a lot of people did, including a lot of Warriors fans, so there's kind of calls to make a new move. Giannis is definitely something that would change things, so they would trade Jimmy Butler, Jonathan Kuminga, and picks, and they would get Giannis and Kyle Kuzma. I think that's the trade idea that I saw that makes the most sense. The Bucks are getting Jimmy Butler, who could serve a variety of purposes, whether that's, okay, we're going to keep Jimmy around. Once again, those Bucks and Heat rivalries kind of come back up, but like, we're going to keep Jimmy around. We're going to have him be our guy for the next couple years, or we trade Jimmy this offseason for more picks. I think that makes a lot more sense to free up cap space, get some young players, whatever. Now, the thing about Jimmy is he tore his ACL, so he wouldn't hamper the abilities, the Bucks ability, although I don't know if the Bucks have their pick. Let me check. But he wouldn't change things crazy so that he would have to get moved in the offseason. I don't know how many teams are going to buy in, though, since he tore his ACL. That does become difficult. Now let's take a look. Do the Bucks have their... Yeah, okay, so they have... Oh, so they have the right to swap... The Pelicans have the right to swap picks with the Bucks, so Milwaukee's going to get the lower of the two, so... I mean, both of those. So honestly, it wouldn't hurt them to tank because, and I'm assuming Google's right about that. Sometimes they get those swaps and stuff messed up, but I'm going to assume that's right. And it wouldn't hurt them to, lose some games this year because if their pick is bad and New Orleans' pick is going to be bad, then, although I thought the Hawks had that pick. Don't they have New Orleans' pick next year? So do they, maybe the Bucks get the lower of the two, and whichever one New Orleans gets, they have to give to Atlanta. I'm not completely sure. So if I should have done more research on that, but I'm not going to just spend a bunch of time right now doing it because we're in the middle of an episode. But so say New Orleans pick is going to be bad, right? New Orleans has not been good this year. They're not going to randomly turn around, I don't think. And the Bucks, if they get the 8th or it might be even worse. It could be the 7th pick, or I guess that's better. And then they could get their pick because the New Orleans one would be worse. Then that doesn't hurt them, right? So not winning this year is a good thing for Milwaukee. So having Jimmy Butler, who won't play for the rest of the year, is not a bad thing. They also get Jonathan Kuminga, who is obviously... I don't know. I don't know exactly what he is, obviously. Now, he's been talked about so much in trade deals. I would know. I'm a Nets fan. He's been constantly talked about. Everyone saying, oh, well, he's going to get traded, which is not surprising at all. I think he will. When I talk about, like, oh, is this guy going to get you traded? Yeah, Jonathan Kuminga probably will. But I don't know if, like, I don't know if he's going to blossom into a new player once he gets somewhere else. Now, he has good games every once in a while, but I just don't know if he's going to be like, oh, well, Jonathan Kuminga, he gets to Milwaukee, look out. He'll be solid, and he'll play for them, but I just don't know if he's going to, like, I don't know if he's a great young talent as much as the Warriors would like people to think he is. Obviously, picks are going to be involved in any deal that involves trading Giannis. And then Kyle Kuzma, the Bucks get rid of Kyle Kuzma, which they get rid of that terrible contract. The Warriors would have to take on that contract, which I don't know. Like, I think the reason the Bucks would do this deal is partially to get rid of Kuzma's contract, and I think they say no if Kuzma's not included. So the Warriors would have to deal with it, although they might not want to. And then, so the Warriors would look like Steph Curry, Podziemski, Moses Moody, Giannis, and Draymond. Part of me is like, I'm not totally moved. But the other part of me is like, Curry and Giannis is such an insane duo. But that team is old. And they're already old. But, like, I'm not crazy moved by that team. I do think, though, that Curry and Giannis would be an incredible duo. And I wouldn't want to have to play them in a playoff series, which was what I think the Warriors would be looking for. And then the Bucks would look like Ryan Rollins, AJ Green, Jonathan Kuminga, and then like Bobby Portis and Miles Turner. So it's pretty much their lineup now, except you replace Kyle Kuzma with Jonathan Kuminga, which I don't know if they're super moved by that. But once again, if it does help them get a better pick this offseason, and then if they could flip Jimmy Butler as we get into that offseason, and maybe they get some picks for that, maybe they get some young talent, then that could be something that may be worthwhile down the line. I think the Heat deal is better at the moment, but the Warriors have an offer. They do have an offer. There are other teams who could maybe do something. I just think those are the two most likely. I don't see, like I said, I don't want the Nets to make an offer. Or you can call, but I don't really want that. I just want them to stay away. Speaking of the Nets, let's talk about MPJ. So he's one of the guys who's very involved in trade talks because he's having such a great year. He's going to be an all-star this year, I would hope. And he's been incredible. He's been really, really good. It feels like 2019 D'Lo a little bit, while it's like, wow, he's been hooping all year. And we weren't expecting him to be quite as good as he has been, but he's been great. And the question now becomes, well, what do the Nets do, right? Because like I said, they're in that rebuilding phase of, maybe they're trying to get a good pick this year. That's no secret. They want one of those top 3 to 5 guys. I would love for them to get a top 2 pick because I think that I'm super high on Darren Peterson and AJ Debonsa. I think that either one of them would be really cool for the Nets to get. So I would love a top 2 pick. If that doesn't happen, there's a lot of other talented guys, but they are in that rebuilding phase, right? So they look at MPJ, who's been pretty much the only reason they've won games all year. Although, shout out Yegor Diomand hooping against the Utah Jazz. That was really cool. He had a really good night. I do believe in Yegor. And I'll probably talk about the rookies in an upcoming week. But I do think that MPJ has been the reason they've won most of the games that they've been winning. And him and Jordi Fernandez, great coach. And now the question becomes, well, do you trade him now or do you wait and maybe trade him in the offseason? Or do you say, okay, we're just going to keep him? I don't know. I would like them to keep him at least until the offseason, and then in the draft, say the lottery gods are not in our favor, and we get the 7th or 8th overall pick, right? Same thing as last year. Then I think we say, let's talk to the Wizards, or let's talk to the Kings, these people who have the number 1 overall pick or the number 2 overall pick. Let's talk to them. Let's say, we'll give you this pick. We've got other picks to throw in there. Maybe we throw in Michael Porter Jr. It doesn't even have to be the top 2. Maybe you trade up into the top 5. I don't think that would be a bad move. Now, it depends what team you're talking to, but say like the Atlanta Hawks, with that Pelicans pick, say they jump up into the top 3, right? Then all of a sudden it's like, well, the Hawks are a team that might be in a position to win now. Their starting small forward right now is Zachary Risache, who hasn't shown a whole lot of value. Now say, hey, we'll give you Michael Porter Jr., we'll give you some spacing that they don't really have because Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels are your two guys right now. They're not super great, super consistent shooters. Dyson Daniels has not been able to hit threes very well for most of the season. And then you say, hey, like we'll give you Michael Porter Jr., we'll give you our like 7th overall pick, we'll give you maybe a pick or two in the future. Like now all of a sudden you're bought into the top 3. I don't think that's a bad, and do the Hawks make that move? Not necessarily, but I think that it's better than whatever you'd be able to get right now, especially since you don't know what the second half of the year is going to look like. You don't know what the lottery odds are going to look like. So I want them to wait. But if they don't wait, I think Detroit makes the most sense. I think that Detroit does have some stuff they could give the Nets that could be interesting. I don't know what the Nets haul would be looking like. They would definitely need a couple picks. I don't know what picks Detroit has exactly in terms of like, do they have the pick of a rebuilding team or do they just have their own picks? And I do think, though, that makes the most sense. I think for Detroit, that would be awesome because MPJ is a really good player. The package that I saw that was most common and I thought made some amount of sense would be Tobias Harris, Jay Nivey, and some picks. The Pistons would then look like Cade, obviously. Duncan Robinson, I guess, would start at the 2, then Asar, MPJ, and Jalen Duren, which I think is a really, really solid team. Obviously, they've already been playing great basketball, and then you add MPJ in there, who brings you scoring and shooting, which they're not an incredible three-point shooting team, so having him would be great. And then the Nets would look like Yegor Dioman. Jay Nivey creates kind of a weird logjam at the guard position where, and obviously his health has been an issue, but like him and Cam Thomas don't really fit, but Cam Thomas is also going to leave this offseason. I think that's been pretty clear. If not at the deadline, I just don't know who would, like, he's on such a weird contract that I think he's probably going to be, like, I think it's probably just going to wait till the offseason and then he leaves in free agency. But Yegor Dioman, Jay Nivey, Tobias Harris, Noah Clowney, and then Nick Claxton. Now, obviously, the Nets have a lot of fluctuation in their lineups. We could see, like we see Danny Wolf get minutes, we see Daron Sharp get minutes. We don't know if Claxton's going to make it past the trade deadline. But I do think that for the Nets, this wouldn't be awful, especially depending on what picks they get. For the Pistons, this would be great. I still want them to keep MPJ at least till the offseason. Now, I understand that there are some things that are like, well, he has a history of back injuries, so if they keep him around and he gets injured, what happens, right? But I do think that I don't know. I would love for MPJ to be in the long-term plans of this team because he's played great. He doesn't fit their timeline, unfortunately. But I don't think it's time to move on from him just yet, especially since they've been fun to watch and he's fit well with this group. And I think he helps the rookies develop just because, like, when you've got a bunch of pass-first point guards and they have a guy who they can feed the ball to, it's like that's helpful to them. But those are the two guys that I really wanted to talk the most about. There are a lot of other guys being talked about. I think MPJ, not the most likely to be traded. Claxton, I'm not sure, maybe. I think that we could see Jared Allen get moved potentially. I think that Ja Morant has been talked about a lot, and I almost put him on this list. I just think that his value is so low right now that the Grizzlies aren't going to give him up at the deadline, and they're going to hope that he just has a good second half of the year. Do I see that being super likely? No, but I just don't think they're going to get they're going to ask for a lot and not get a lot. And I just don't, especially since they got 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane, they're going to expect a lot from Ja Morant, and I don't think they're going to get that. So I think they wait till the offseason. Maybe they wait and see, like, if a team that's missing a point guard like the Timberwolves or the Rockets, and now Fred VanVleet will be back for the Rockets eventually, but a team that's missing a point guard plays really poorly, and they're like, well, if only we had a point guard. Maybe then the Grizzlies say, hey, we'll give you Ja. It's going to cost you a bit, but we'll give you Ja. I think that they're going to wait. Maybe not, but who knows? Karl Anthony Towns has been talked about in trade rumors. I don't know, like, same thing. I don't know if teams are going to buy into him as much as the Knicks would want them to. I'm trying to think of other guys who've been talked about. Keon Ellis was a big one, and he's obviously been moved. DeAndre Hunter's been moved now. And there's just Jonathan Kuminga, I think, will definitely get moved. At least that's the same thing we've said about like Nikola Vucevic for the past like 4 years. So, I mean, maybe Jonathan Kuminga is just going to be that guy where it's like if he gets traded, but if man, right? Zeke Najee's a guy that, from a Nuggets perspective, I would love to see traded. I just think he eats up too much of their contract. I'm not high on Zeke Najee. I don't think that he's a very good player. I think he's not worth his contract. So if they could offload that somehow, that would be great for them, and that would give them a little bit of money to work with. Maybe they can re-sign Peyton Watson eventually. I don't know. But I do think that this is going to be hopefully an interesting trade deadline. Obviously, we've seen interesting trade deadlines. We've seen boring ones. Nothing has happened during this episode. And we've still got like 4 days until the trade deadline. It's not till February 5th. So we'll see what happens. But hopefully it will be interesting. Hopefully some good stuff will happen. Hopefully the Nets will not totally blow up everything they've been working for. We are now going to go into our games of the week. So a little bit of a shorter episode today, which, whatever. So last week that we did this was tough. We went 3-4. That was not great. Just some unfortunate picks. That brings our record to 51-14 on the year. Not terrible, but it can always be better. So this week we're going 7 for 7, of course. Sunday, today's game, Thunder Nuggets. What a game. I'm excited. Nikola Jokic is back. He had an incredible game back, which I was at, by the way. Not to brag. But that was a super, super fun game. It was cool to see him back on the court. And now he has a chance for MVP. So we'll see what happens at Thunder Nuggets. I am going to take the Thunder, I guess. I know they've been on a slide recently, but I do feel like this is a game that they're game planning for, that they're ready for. The Nuggets are still missing 3 starters. I mean, I guess technically Christian Braun is doubtful, so he could play, but, you know, there's doubt. And I just feel like the Nuggets are sort of getting back into the swing of things, but the Thunder can exploit the fact that they're missing some of the guys that they expect to really perform. I think that this game could go either way. I would like the Nuggets to win it, but it could go either way. I'm going to make my prediction as the Thunder, though. Monday, Sixers going to LA to play the Clippers. The Clippers have been hot recently. Now, obviously, they dropped the game to the Nuggets where Jokic came back, but I do think that this will be kind of a bounce back for them since they've been playing really well. I'm going to take the Clippers. Tuesdays, the Nuggets are going to Detroit to play the Pistons. That's another fun one. I'm taking the Nuggets there, though. I think they're definitely going to win either their Sunday or Tuesday matchup. I don't know if they win both, but whichever one they don't win, I think they win the other. You know? Wednesday, Thunder going to San Antonio. They're playing the Spurs. The Spurs have had the Thunder's number. Now, the Thunder did win the last one, but give me the Spurs here. I think that they're going to get back on track against a team that they've been able to game plan against really well, and that Wembanyama just loves beating. Thursday, Warriors at Suns. I'm taking the Suns. The Suns have been really impressive this year. I've been really happy with what they've done. Dylan Brooks has been playing great basketball. He had a 40-point night the other night. I wonder if they'll do anything at the trade deadline, but, I mean, they've been playing really good basketball. Friday, the Heat are playing the Celtics. I'm going to take the Celtics there. That's just kind of a fun rivalry game. Now, if the Heat trade for Giannis, then this is not going to be the headline of their week, but and I don't know, the Celtics are probably not going to make any big moves, but the Celtics have been really impressive this year, even missing Jason Tatum, so I'm going to take them. Saturday, Rockets Thunder. The Thunder get 3 games of the week this week just because they're all great matchups, and I'm going to take the Thunder in that one. So I'm taking them in 2 of their 3, so Thunder fans, don't be mad. They're still really, really good. Now, I know they've slid, and I know they're no longer going to be the greatest team of all time record-wise, but that's a high bar. So if you're expecting them to be that, then you're expecting a little much. But they've still been really good. This has been a fun season so far. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you guys have enjoyed my insights on the weeks that I can get them out. I do appreciate you for listening. Hopefully you guys enjoy the games this week. Hopefully the trade deadline is interesting. Let me know in the comments if there's any trades you would like to see. And we will talk about the trades that do happen next week on Just Talk Hoops.